there's been more than $200 million invested in the ecosystem. And if you just add it up, it's a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem. So all of the sharing that people are doing through these applications is driven by a concept that we call the social graph that we introduced last year at F8. The idea behind the social graph is, we'll catch up, is that everyone has a set of friends, family, coworkers, and when you map out all these real connections that people have, it just forms this massive interconnected web and graph of everyone's real connections. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to take this real-world social graph and map it out as accurately as possible. And the reason why we're trying to do this is that if you look at the connections on this graph, you'll see that the way that sharing happens in the world is across these real connections that people have. One person has something that they want to share with their friends, and then their friends can pass it on, and that's how a lot of things spread. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to map out and build as accurate of a model of the social graph as possible, so that way all of our applications can just facilitate sharing with people's connections more easily. Now, within Facebook, there are a lot of different ways that people do sharing through the social graph. And one of the most powerful of these is through a structure that we call feeds. And feeds are really powerful because they always surface the most recent and relevant information that's going on within the system. So in an environment where people are constantly sharing a lot of information, people can always rely on feeds to show them just the most recent and interesting things that are going on. So that drives a lot of traffic and views to the most recent content that's in the system. And if you think about it from the perspective of the person who's sharing that information, the reason why they're sharing it is so that people view it. So the fact that people are viewing it actually drives more sharing. So we call this the virtuous cycle of sharing. Feeds surface recent content, which drives consumption of recent content, which drives production of more recent content, which is then more surfaced in feed. This is a really important concept in our ecosystem, and it drives a lot of the sharing that's going on. We've historically used a number of feeds in our products, dating back to the very early days when our friends page showed just the most recently updated profiles that there were in a network. The most powerful feed, though, in our system today is Newsfeed. It sits right on your home page, and it computes and shows you the most interesting things that all your friends are doing with all the applications across your network. And the day that we launched Newsfeed, pretty shortly after, traffic on the site went up by almost 50% because just the most recent content was being surfaced. And what we found was steadily after that, for the next couple of weeks, the virtuous cycle of sharing kicked in, and the amount of content that people produced also increased by the same level as the number of page views. So let's look at an example of this from the platform ecosystem. We'll look at the example of iLike. iLike is a music sharing application that allows people to share the music they care about with the people they care about. And music is just such a universal thing that it's really a great thing to build an application around. And it really struck a chord with people very quickly. Now, one of the ways that people were sharing information through iLike is through feeds. People who had added iLike got information and feed stories about their friends' concerts that they were going to and favorite music, and people who hadn't added it yet got stories about their friends using iLike. And within 4 days, more than 1 million people, 4 days of launching the platform last year, more than 1 million people had already used and tried out iLike. So that's an example of the power of feeds. It's an early example, but I think it demonstrates the point. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about a bit today is a new kind of feed that we built, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, we've also learned a lot of lessons in the last year. When we first were releasing platform, we took this approach of just getting it out as quickly as possible. And even though things weren't completely baked yet, we just wanted to get it in front of people, and we figured we'd iterate as quickly as we could. And we thought, honestly, that it might take a few months or even half a year before anyone was really seriously developing on top of it. So you can imagine how challenging it's been for us to try to guide the ecosystem in the direction of helping people build real meaningful social applications. So as happy as I am with the growth over the past year and the growth of the ecosystem, there are a lot of mistakes that we've made and things we've learned that we need to do differently. We've learned that we need to work more closely with developers in order to help them build the kinds of applications that actually are helping people share information. I think we can all agree that we don't want an ecosystem full of applications that are just trying to spread themselves virally and not further our movement. In order to do this, we've learned that we need to build the right tools and work with developers so that they can actually build these types of applications. And it's not enough to simply build the right tools. We've also learned that we need to align incentives better to reward the applications that are helping people share and building meaningful and engaging experiences. Over the last year, we haven't done enough to reward the good citizens in the ecosystem. And on the flip side of that, we haven't done enough to punish the applications that have just been abusive. So we've learned that in order for this whole thing to work out and succeed, we're going to need to find a way to make sure that the applications that are providing the most long-term value in the ecosystem are the ones that are succeeding. We've also learned a thing about simplicity and scale. When the developer ecosystem ramped up very quickly, a lot of applications just prompted users to add boxes to their profiles, even if the people weren't ever going to touch the application again. And this produced a lot of clutter in the system. So what we've learned is that if we want to have an ecosystem that can support the quantity and volume of information flow and sharing that's possible with the type of community that we have, we need to build a more simple and elegant solution for this type of sharing. So we've learned a lot over the past year, and over the past couple of months, several months, we've been working with a number of developers to incorporate these into the next evolution of the Facebook site and platform. We went into this with just 3 goals. The first was to give people more powerful tools to share. The second was to reward the developers that use those tools and build other types of applications that are engaging and help people share information. And the third is we want to simplify the site. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to look at the new profile yet or the new site to see what we've done, let's take a look. So the core of the new profile is built around a new type of feed that we built that we're calling the wall, because in addition to people sharing information themselves, it supports a lot of other people, their friends sharing information about them as well, just like the old plastic wall that we had. And the idea here is that everything that's going on with a person will be in a stream on the person's profile provided by both them and their friends through all of the different applications in the ecosystem. And when you see someone's wall, we want you to get the feeling that you just really understand what's going on with this person and that you're there with them. These feeds are also a great way to understand and interact with people. This feed is, I'll catch up in a second. These feeds are also a great way to incentivize developers towards building applications that are more engaging and helping people share a lot of information. Under the old model, when developers the primary presence that they had in profiles was boxes, a user would add a box to their profile once, and then regardless of whether they used that application ever again, the developer's information was surfaced there. But under the new system with these feeds, the amount of information that's surfaced through an application will be proportional to the amount of sharing that application is enabling, and therefore the applications that are helping people share the most and providing the most engaging experiences will be the ones that succeed.